we were not, oh, I did not anticipate the interesting discussion. And so we did not record, you know. Usually we only record when we start, when we come back.
I did.
Oh, you did? Oh, good. I was going to say, you know, such is the nature of transmission, you know. It cannot be fixated. If you get it, you get it. If you don't get it, then it's gone. So anything to add or to say from where we were, you know, sometimes giving a few minutes to people, you know, things can sink in.
Yes, I have something to say.
Yes, sure.
For me, talking about the boomies is like, I'm more worried about what can I do today, every day, that is consistent with what I should be doing as a practitioner. So on the one hand, the discussion of the boomies and so forth is quite interesting intellectually.
Yes.
I think that's one of my weaknesses overall as a practitioner, is
Yes.
I tend to intellectualize more than
Yes.
practice.
Yes, yes. I think we most of us suffer from that. Generally, in the West especially, and I would say modern cultures where literacy is very high, then we know a lot of things, you know, and we value knowing a lot of things. I even have a PhD to prove it, you know, in my case. So I'm very, you know, cerebral in that sense. But again, more and more, you know, I'm seeing myself, you know, like I really need to practice in the broad sense of that word. And then when we have that attitude, then we can also see how, even though it is right now an intellectual curiosity, a proposition, it can also, if we skillfully know what to do with it, it can also become something, even like, you know, oh, on the 10th bhumi, it is blah, blah, blah. Even that, we know how to skillfully use that. Even now, -1 bhumi, which is where most of us are, we can still use that in a helpful way. And that's why we talk about it too, you know. So in this book that we're going to be reading, there will be a lot of sections that I can tell you, you know, that you're going to go, oh my God, this is just like way too much and so abstract, or, you know, talking about things that I don't know how to even care about it, much less to know, you know, I care or I don't care about it. So we're not going to get too caught up, as Nathan was saying, in the minute details of the commentary. We will try our best to kind of stay with the root statement, the Vajra statement, and of course we will look at the commentary and Sobish's notes to help us. But some of it, because again, Chodra, you have to understand, Chodra is wrote this in part, the dual responsibility I'm sure he felt when he wrote this in the 1600s. One is to write it as a guide for people who are practicing, not scholars. Write it as a guide for people who are practicing the Dharma and grounding their Dharma practice in the Gongchik system, in the Gongchik understanding. But he was also writing to defend the intellectual or scholarly attacks against the Gongchik. And So those sections where he was doing that can be a little difficult for us to read and to get and to appreciate. But don't get caught up in that, either excitedly or disgustedly, if that's a word. Just recognize, he has two jobs that he has to do with this commentary. And when he's defending the scholarly attacks on the Gongchik, again, I don't think it's very beneficial for us to see it only in terms of like, oh, this is just some sectarian stuff. I think that's too cynical. I think I would suggest that we look at it as, if he thinks, the Gongchik is an amazing system, and then if on the general word around the circles is that, this Gongchik, it has no integrity, it's saying crazy things, then of course Chodra, being a holder of this lineage, feels a responsibility to clarify that and say, no, you got us wrong, And so that's partly what's motivating his writing of Nimanangwa for the purposes of not only supporting those who are already grounding their practice according to the understanding presented in Gongchik, but also to defend the kind of scholarly assaults that have been launched against the Gongchik. These scholarly assaults, you have to understand that ultimately all of them who were engaged in this saw it as a way to keep the Dharma debates and discussion alive and active. Again, we should not think of it as an act of maliciousness or an act of like asserting sectarian superiority. Now, in actual fact, was that what's going on? Again, from the perspective of a practitioner, I don't care, right? I'm not, trying to get tenure at a university for being a scholar of Tibet intellectual history. So maybe it was just vicious attacks. But on this end, when we read these things, if we get caught up in, sectarian, vicious attacks, misrepresentation, not fair, blah, 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 then at the end of studying it, we know a lot about Tibetan intellectual history and the developments, but we know nothing that will help us clear our confusion. So as a strategy, it is better to approach these scholarly assaults as basically motivated by a desire to keep the teachings alive, fresh, debated, and refined. So you should have that kind of attitude. Don't see it as, this group is attacking that group is attacking this group. The more practice-oriented people are attacking the more scholarly people, and the more scholarly people are attacking the more practice-oriented people. This is just about history. History is already over. Nothing you say can change those things. But now, as practitioners, when we read these kind of commentaries, these kind of teachings, we can either be collecting eggs, or we can be collecting the analogy used by Ajahn Chah, or we could be collecting chicken droppings. When we go into our chicken coop early in the morning, should we be collecting chicken eggs, or should we be collecting chicken poop? Then when I shared this example, some clever person will say, well, it depends on whether you're making omelette or you're making, fertilizer. It's like, yeah, that's true also. You just know what you're going to make, you know, with what you're collecting. If you're going to be making an omelet, don't mistake poop for eggs. And then if you're making, you know, if you're going to spread if you want to fertilize, you know, another part of your land, you know, and don't waste your eggs. Collect the chicken poop and spread that around. Vajra statement, chapter 1, Vajra statement 1, in the layout of the chapters as we find it in the Nimanawa. Now page 49. First we look at, we will always first look at the bolded, in bold, the Vajra statement. Then next we can look at what's above it. The Vajra statement itself, Sherab Jungne tells us, that's a statement that Kyoba Rinpoche made. And so then he noted down, or he collected it, or he remembered it. So now he's writing down, Sherab Jungne. So Sherab Jungne says, this Vajra statement is what our Guru taught, what Jigten Sumren taught. Then later, Sherab Jungne provides give us some clue, like what was the context of him saying this? Then those words right above the statement that is in bold. Yeah. Now, this statement 1, Khenchen Rinpoche says, in some ways, it's the most difficult statement. And surprise, surprise, in the Gongchik tradition, it's also the most basic statement. It's also the most difficult statement. It's the most fundamental statement. It's the first statement that you need to know, but it's also the last statement that you will fully know. Right? You could say this is sort of the Gongchik style. The very first foundational, fundamental understanding you need to have, and everything else that you work on in terms of understanding, clarifying confusion, is basically to clarify this line all the way to the state of Buddha. So, in other words, don't expect to know everything, to understand everything in this first statement. The statement will be the beginning of our understanding. It will also be the final result of our understanding. So in English, it says, all the teachings of the Buddha reveal the original state of the fundamental nature. All the teachings of the Buddha reveal the original state of the fundamental nature. Now I want you to take a pen and paper, something that you can write on, because we need to look at this statement. I would like to take you on a tour of this statement. Before we read Chodrat's commentary, I want to take you through a dissecting of this statement, part by part. First disclaimer, I am not formally trained in the Tibetan language. So I cannot actually do any, I have no ability to tell you the details of its grammar and all of that. But this statement I have looked at for a long, long time. And I have talked to my teachers, heard other teachers teach. And so I can say something about this line by dissecting all the different parts. So I'm going to give you the Tibetan because we're going to dissect it in its original Tibetan. And hopefully this is helpful. So the Tibetan goes like this. Let me make sure I don't say it wrong, even though I believe I have memorized it, but to be safe. Okay, so first, I'll spell it out, and I want to make sure all of you got it. Actually, here, I'm going to, as I speak, I'm going to send it to our WhatsApp group, the Tibetan sound. So it's zhe, gun, shi, sam, bab, shi, sam, bab, chuku, shi, sam, bab ki neluk ten, shi, sam, bab ki ne look 10. Okay, so I've sent it to WhatsApp, and if one of you have a way to take that from WhatsApp to put into this chat on Zoom, go ahead and do that. Chukun shisam babki neluk 10. So let's dissect this statement. It's a very peculiar statement. Even in the Tibetan, I was told, when you ask Tibetans who are educated, like not just any Tibetan, not just educated in ordinary Tibetan, but Dharma educated Tibetan, when they look at this statement, they say it's actually a somewhat puzzling statement. So first of all, this statement is not very obvious or clear-cut. Yeah. First word to look at is the very last, 10. Tibetan language, the sentence structure is such that the verb is at the end of the sentence. I think Japanese is also like that. What other languages do you all know where the verb is at the end?
German.
Oh, German. Oh, yeah. So that word, 10 is to teach. To teach, to reveal, to instruct, to show. So now if you look at Sobish's translation, you can see where that is, right? Reveal. So that's reveal, teach, show. Now the subject, who is showing? Or what is showing, rather, then is chukun. Chu is dharma. So we say sangye chu dang, sangye chu dang soki chok namla in the refuge. Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, sangye chu. Chu is dharma. Kun is all. So all dharmas. So in fact, in this Tibetan statement, whereas Sobish says the Buddha, right? All teachings, all the teachings of the Buddha, if you want to be strict in the translation, should be in parentheses. Because it's not in the Tibetan. Tibetan just says all dharmas. All dharmas, Sobish translate as the teachings. Okay? But here it says all dharmas. So if you want to put chukun as all dharmas, and then at the end is review, teach. So the subject is all dharmas. What do all dharmas do? All dharmas reveal, all dharmas show, all dharmas teach. So here you could say by implication, you can say all the dharmas that the Buddha taught, which is what Sobish translate this statement as. But as we will see later, I would say maybe this has over-translated. I would say of the Buddha needs to be in parentheses. You'll see later why I'm saying this. Sobish's translation is not wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying let's stick to what can be found in the Tibetan, even if the translation is not so elegant. So chukun, all dharmas. Then teach, review, okay? Some, let's look at some first. Some is translated into English as or, like either or, you know? So then, what is she and what is bab? What is she and what is bab? And these are very literal. So it's like, it's saying she or bab. That she, some bab, right? Is she or bab. And then what is she? She is essence. Yeah. What is bab? Bab literally is to come down. To come down. It has a sense of to unfold. To come down, to unfold, to play out is another way, an expression we use in English, to play out. Sort of like, you know, to see how this situation would play out, right? How this situation will unfold. If you look at the Tibetan dictionaries, let's see, let me read some of the definitions. It says, English tenses. Okay, anyway, here it says to descend, to fall, to come down, to move downward, to slope towards. So it's a verb used for, like, when rain is falling, you will say, you know, rain is rain is bubbing, so to say. Rain is falling, rain is coming down, rain is descending. Now, it also has, one in English, it says to bring down, to come, to arrive, to occur, to descend, to go down, to flow down, to fall. Then it also has another meaning, which is kind of interesting, innate abiding. So, but bracket that aside, innate abiding. The way something is, it's like naturally remaining. This is kind of strange, right? We will say, well, that's a complete opposite of falling, of coming down, of playing out. meaning of up is to descend, is to fall down, to come down, rain coming down. And actually that word is used during the empowerment ritual. When we say the verb that is used for like the from the three places, light goes out to invite wisdom beings and then they come or they descend. That word is bab. That verb is bab in Tibetan. So this is the bab here. Then, okay, let me also go read for you from the dictionary, the Shi, just to give you a whole range of meaning. Shi is, I said, essence, but it's like basic disposition, native state, natural state, native state, true nature, innate disposition, basic nature, essence, real state, true nature, true disposition, real condition. So now, Shi or Bab. So if we use some words from the definitions that we've looked at, you can say Shi, Bab, Shi, some Bab can be translated as the innate nature or descent or playing out. The innate nature or the playing out, the unfolding, the descent. So now, then the next word we need to look at is Neluk. Neluk. Neluk is a quite common word in Tibetan philosophical or Neluk is the mode, the state of things, the mode of abiding, the fundamental nature, the reality, the natural state, the basic condition, Neluk, the natural state. Here in Sobish, I think it's the original state. He translates the original state for Neluk. Are you all still following or gone? Yeah, you got all the different parts, yeah? And then the ki. Ki. Ki is like a possessive clause. So meaning then, this Neluk, this natural state, or here, let's use Sobish's translation, original state. The original state of what? What Sobish has done here is he is going to translate this as the original state of the fundamental nature. So I think what he has done here is Shi Sam Bab. Shi Sam Bab. he reads it as just fundamental nature. The fundamental nature, then, so she sam bab ki ne luk, he translates as the original state of the fundamental nature. But what I want us to do is, she sam bab, right? Don't translate as fundamental nature only. But translate it more literally as she is, you could say, fundamental nature, yeah, or which is the sum. So the fundamental nature or the unfolding, the playing out. So then, she sam bab ki ne luk becomes the original state of the fundamental nature, or unfolding, descent, or playing out. Playing out is more our common expression, the playing out. How does the, in other words, how does the original state play out on the one hand? That is the bab. But also, how is it in its essence state? And that's the bab. That's the she. Do you follow so far? Yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, one yes.
Yes, trying to.
23, 22, no.
I miss the key meaning. I mean,
Miss what?
what means key?
Key is possessive.
Oh, possessive. Okay.
Yeah. It's a possessive what? Clause? I don't know grammatical terms. Like,
Okay.
you know, like apostrophe S, you know, in English.
Does it mean that it is the original state, but it unfolds differently?
No, here it's saying,
No,
so, yes, go ahead.
if I am understanding well,
Yes.
says it's the original state and what manifests from this original state, or I understood wrong?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. But let me add a little bit more. It's the original state in its essence level and in its manifested level.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
That's what's going on. Yes. Original nature would be neluk. The neluk of what? The neluk of the bab and the neluk of the she. The original state, how it is in its essence, and how it is when it manifests. So now, all dharmas reveal the original state of how it is and how it manifests, how it plays out. This is our group translation of this Vajra statement. I have no ability to translate the other Vajra statements because, like I say, I'm not formally trained in Tibetan, but this statement is so important, you know, that I've asked my teachers, asked other teachers again and again, you know, like, what are all the different parts, you know, in this statement? Then we can together come up with this, our translation. So our translation will be something like, all dharmas reveal the neluk. Maybe we do it stage by stage, so that you can see the Tibetan. All dharmas reveal the neluk of the bab and the neluk of the she and bab. Write that first. All dharmas reveal, that's not problematic at all. All dharmas reveal is kind of straightforward. All dharmas reveal the original state of the she and the bab. Got that?
But but you say it's not ant, but it's
Sorry,
or.
yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
All, good. All dharmas reveal the original state of the she or the bab.
Yeah, but it's if it's or, it's well, I don't know how it's in English, but here in Spanish it's like or. It's like two similar things.
Yes, it's two similar things, actually. It is. We'll get to it. Don't worry. Yes. In
Okay.
English too. Or, you know.
And I have another question.
Yeah.
Can I do it now?
Let's see if we got the
Okay.
sentence yet. Yeah, everybody. Yeah. Did you get the sentence, which is a mix of English and Tibetan? Yeah.
Yes.
Again, I'll repeat. All dharmas reveal the original state of the she or the bab. Yeah. So now she and bab are seen as, in this statement, equivalent. Right? Meaning you can say it is the she, and you can also say it is the bab. Then the translations we have for she and bab, she is essence, right? What else? Do you remember the list I gave you? She. What else? Can someone read?
Basic state.
Real condition.
Ultimate nature, native state, basic disposition, real condition.
Yes. So that's all, you know, possible translations for she. Wei Ting, can you repeat again slowly?
Ultimate nature, native state, basic disposition, real conditions.
Okay. And so it's saying, so she, or you can also say bab. And what are the definitions for bab?
Descend.
Yeah, to descend, to come down.
To come down.
More literally, like rain coming down, you know.
Play out.
And then more meaning translation rather than word translation is play out, unfold. Yeah.
Innate abiding.
Innate abiding.
The innate abiding, don't use it. Put it aside. Yes.
Manifest.
There is one possible translation, but I think in this Vajra statement, it's not innate abiding.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, because there is a pair that is put together where on the outer surface, you're talking about two different things. One is essence and one is how it manifests. But here is saying that they're actually not two things.
Right.
That's why or is used. So then the first point, this statement, there are a few points, right? The first point is making is, what do all these dharmas reveal? They reveal the original state. You get that part? They reveal the original state. In Tibetan, it's called neluk, the original state. Now, then, to expand on that, the original state of what? Then the original state of she. Or you can also say they also reveal the original state of bab. Now I'm going to substitute she and bab. She is emptiness. Bab is dependent origination.
Manifestation.
Or dependent origination. This is not a translation, but this is like, so what is she? She is emptiness. And what is bab? Bab is dependent origination And by extension, cause and effect.
Cause and effect.
Cause and effect.
Yep.
So right there, essence of Gongchik. This fundamental nature, here he translates as original state. But earlier in the introduction, I think he used the phrase fundamental state, right? He says that Gongchik is all about, understanding the fundamental state, the fundamental state. So you can say fundamental state. So the fundamental state can be understood from the side of emptiness, or it can be understood also from the side of dependent origination, and they are not two different things.
Right.
Yes, good, everyone?
Okay.
And then the reason why I don't want to put off the Buddha in there and want to follow the Tibetan, just Chokun, it did not say, Sangyeki Chu, for those who know Tibetan, waiting. It did not explicitly say Sangyeki Chu. It just say Chu. Because I think the double meaning is intended, which is all dharmas, as in dharmas that the Buddha taught, as in phenomena. If you know how to look, phenomena itself will reveal its fundamental nature to us. And what Buddhas are doing is simply pointing out. So this is not something that the Buddha made up. This is not something that the Buddha willed it, not in theistic tradition, let there be light and there was light. Like God willed light into existence, right? So God made up the rules in theistic traditions. Here, reason why Buddha taught that things are this way and that way is not because Buddhas made them up, but because that is how things are, and Buddhas are simply teaching it, revealing it to be so. But then in that sense, with or without existence of Buddhas explicitly, if you know how to look, phenomena itself, which is another meaning of Dharma, phenomena itself will show you its fundamental nature. And now, that context that Sherab Jungne provide, so those words before this Vajra statement, in general, people claim that since the Tathagata, meaning the Buddha, is the Lord of Dharma, Lord of phenomena, therefore, he teaches things as he holds them, meaning he teaches, what he teaches is what he has made to be true, meaning of he holds them. He teaches things as he holds them, and thus they are like that. Translate to common expression. It says, some people say, because the Tathagata is the Lord of the Dharma, so whatever he says goes. Because he says so. But here, Kyoba Rinpoche said, no, that's not how it works. Whether the Buddhas appear or not, this is how the way things are. So that's first point in this Vajra statement, important. Second point is, as for the way things are, their essence and the way they manifest, they're not two opposing things. They're the same thing. But if you're confused about that point, then you think that they're opposed. There are greater implications to this statement, which is how commonly do we hear, sometimes, Buddhist teachers saying things like, oh, once you are in the Buddha state, cause and effect is no longer relevant. You have transcended cause and effect. Kyopo Rinpoche said, oh no, this is wrong view. Now, he does not deny you can find, poetically, in some texts, where it says, oh, Buddhas are beyond cause and effect. He says, but that's a lopsided understanding. How can Buddhas or anyone be beyond cause and effect? Sometimes you also hear Buddhist teachers say, on the ultimate state, blah, 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 on the ultimate state, blah, 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 on the ultimate state, blah, blah, blah. With the implication like, ultimate state will cancel out all the things that we know in the relative state. Yes, the ultimate state will cancel out a lot of things that we mistakenly know on the relative state. But it will not cancel out the natural principle of dependent origination. It will not cancel out. It is not in opposition. The natural functioning of dependent arising, the natural functioning of cause and effect. This is one layer of what this statement means. Oh, $11:30 for some of you in Malaysia at night. So we should stop here, yeah? And you can think a little bit, not too strongly, lightly about this. Don't worry, if you don't feel like, oh, I understand everything. If you feel like you understand everything, that's also very good. Because that will inspire you to even look at this even more. Or actually you might have become a Buddha. That's even better news. Then you don't have to learn more. Either case is good. But if you feel like, oh no, I didn't really get much of it, it's okay. This is the initial understanding that at the state of Buddha, then full understanding of this will occur. Just a quick reminder, if you are interested in participating on this weekend's virtual empowerment, you have to send your registration to that email address that was provided. And then there is like suggestions of how you should prepare for it. So some of you might ask, although nobody has explicitly asked, what are the commitments of this empowerment? People like to ask that. Here, it's not given with any kind of expectations of committing to doing this practice, doing so many times of this practice, and all of that. In fact, it's given in the spirit of what we talked about in terms of empowerment, right? And it should be received in that spirit. And then as to the question of, is it possible to receive empowerment virtually? Then the first answer to that question is, I don't know. Why? Because in none of the tantras that I know of did they talk about the internet. So no answer, you know, from the tantras, whether you can or you cannot. Yeah. Then, having said that, there are indirect, I think, answers to that question. The indirect answer to those questions is, if you think about it, even when you are having empowerment non-virtually, like the old way or the main way, where you sit in the same room, I would say what is truly going on isn't going on physically. Although that's what we get fixated on when we are at a non-virtual empowerment. We're fixated on what's physically in the room and who is physically in the room. But the main part of empowerment, even when you're all sitting in the same room, are things that are not happening in the flesh. There are things that are happening virtually in the mind, in the visualization, in following the visualization. So then, you know, in empowerments, they will say, okay, and then the Lama holds up, you know, a card and say, okay, now you think, you know, oh, this crown, this picture of this crown that I'm holding, you know, is an actual crown. Now you think, you know, this crown is put on your head. That is, I would say, virtual. So that's my response. You know, can it happen or not? Well, I think it depends on you. Yeah. But then, here is one thing. Not just this, in general, the taking of empowerments, not just this virtual empowerment, not just this Sunday. Because I know, you know, many of you have other things, plans, you know, you can do, cannot do, totally. This is not to talk you into doing. It doesn't make a difference to me whether you can or you cannot, you want or you don't want. Totally. But just for your education, to consider, for your Dharma education. So most of the teachers in Drigum Kagyu that I know of will say, yeah, you know, if you have a chance, especially Kyabje Gachen Rinpoche, he says, you know, oh, if you have a chance to take empowerment, it's very good to take, you know, doesn't matter who, you know. But I know Rinpoche will also say, if explicitly asked, so far no one has asked, I think, or at least not asked publicly and registered, if for whatever reasons you are unsure about the Vajra Master, you have doubts, or even you have fights, then better not. Even though generally it's beneficial and a blessing. But if you have some sort of whatever, you know, like complicated karma with the person giving the empowerment, then for your good, for their good, better not. And also, if you have, you know, someone who you consider as your main guide, Dharma guide, teacher, Lama, and then somebody else there's an opportunity to take an empowerment with somebody else, and you know that on the human level, your guide and that Lama have some sort of complicated karma, then I will also say, think twice before you complicate your own Dharma life by introducing that element. I don't think it's an absolute obstacle, because to tell the truth, I have that situation where I know, you know, the human side of my lamas, or those who I have received empowerment from. There is some complicated, you know, kind of karma. yeah, there between those teachers. But I can say for myself, I think for the most part, I am able to maintain a pure view about what those things are about. And so it doesn't bother me, then it's fine. But then you have to think carefully, these things. If there is like, some kind of complication that you know of, then better not introduce that complication. It doesn't mean you don't respect this Vajra master. In fact, the best respect you can give to a Vajra master, even if you don't accept this, you don't or you cannot accept this person as a Vajra master for you, the best thing you can do for this person is to respectfully, sincerely say, it's better we not hastily create a condition that later might become a source of conflict and chaos. Then it's not beneficial to you, it's not beneficial to me. So those are the couple of caveats to the general attitude that I find among Drigong teachers, which is, oh, yes, unless the teacher tells you explicitly, if you come, you are committing to doing X, Y, Z, and then I cannot do X, Y, Z, then you don't go. But otherwise, generally Drigong Lamas, my experience, it's like, oh yeah, yes, it's good. Because it's all about purifying the 10 non-virtues. So anyway, have a good day, have a good evening.
I have a question.
Yes, yeah.
Is the link that you gave us in the email to the verses, is that the same one that we have?
Many of you already have the praise in verses.
3-page.
Yeah, many of you already have that.
Okay.
Especially the people who have been coming to Urban Dharma, Kagyu Sangha, you already have that. Yeah.
Okay.
Kagyu Sangha people, look out for an email from KS at udharmanc.com. We have a mailing list for Kagyu Sangha using that address, but I think for many of you, your mail reader might have put it in the spam folder. So things are going into empty space and you're not getting those notifications. Today I'm going to send out to that list. So you go to your spam folder. If within the next few hours you don't see that email, go to the spam folder and mark it as not spam. Then future things sent to this ks at udharmanc.com is not going to get marked as spam. But basically what I want to give you is a Zoom information for tonight's Kagyu Sangha. I'm going to do Zoom as well as push it to our Facebook Kagyu Sangha private group so that people who don't have Zoom can watch, but they cannot interact. So those of you who are doing Zoom already, like those of you here who are Kagyu Sangha people, I recommend you do Zoom. Then there is, interaction. Then for those one or two who are resisting Zoom and insisting, that they not use Zoom, then what can I say? In this case, you can continue to watch on Facebook, but the empowerment will not be broadcasted on Facebook. That is the one thing that I am not comfortable doing. I think it becomes too pedestrian. If anyone and everyone can just accidentally drop in and out, in and out, in and out, I'm just saying myself, I don't have the power to handle that kind of distraction. So the empowerment will not be automatically sent out to Facebook at all. So if you're interested in that, you should write to the email address and then there's an automated response that will come to you. Yeah. Changchu Semchu Rinpoche Ma Ge Pa Nam Ge Gyu Ji Ge Pa Nyam Pa Me Pa Gong Ne Gong Du Bel War one last point. When you register for the empowerment, it will tell you if you want to, you can send the donation to Urban Dharma. Just so you know, I never look at those things. So I won't know one way or the other. Don't feel shy and say, oh, I cannot contribute, you know. I don't think I should do it, you know. That's secondary. So also just to be clear, I don't ever look at who gives or who doesn't give to Urban Dharma. I have, again, no power to handle that kind of information and maintain equanimity mind. So I tell the treasurer, I don't want to know these things. Okay, ta-ta.
Thank you.